So I'm carrying on my series of Master Retro reviews with Season 2, Episode 11, Carry On Hawkeye. See what I did there? Yeah. This episode, very much, I felt like I should have watched and reviewed during the COVID pandemic, because there's a flu epidemic going through the camp. Everyone's getting sick, and pretty much the only people who are not getting sick are Hawkeye, Margaret, and a handful of nurses. Raider also and Father McKay also managed to stay healthy, but Trapper is the first surgeon to go down with the flu, then Henry, then Frank. Now, both Trapper and Henry do try to get back, but they end up back in bed very quickly. And of course, Frank, well, he's probably the worst hit of all of them because, he basically gets somewhat delusional while he's sick. But really, what I really like about the opening of this episode is how everyone in the camp is wearing masks. So most of them are wearing masks, exercising proper precautions to prevent the spread of the flu. Then, of course, then we get into the meat of the episode, and all of a sudden they're only wearing masks in surgery. Guys, if you're attending to sick people, and you don't want to get sick, you probably should be wearing masks. Now, that is likely an effect of they didn't want to keep the actors' faces hidden for the entirety of the episode. Which makes sense. Actors generally want their faces to be seen. It's a big part of how they get parts, headshots and all that. And of course, if there's a later episode, Dreams, where it's, a larger surgery, but the dream sequences, no masks. So that's, I think, why they chose not to wear masks during most of the episode outside of the opening scene that establishing that the flu is going through. And of course, apparently, they're not the only place where the flu is going through, because they can't find any replacement surgeons, which Radar tried, called all over. Hawkeye even called nobody. And of course, that actually kind of does reflect the crisis at the beginning of the pandemic, where doctors were the ones and nurses were the ones who were getting sick initially, because guess who were responding and treating the pandemic? Now, obviously, when they wrote this episode, COVID was not a thing. But you know what was a thing? The 1918 Spanish flu. Only called Spanish flu because Spain was the only country during World War II during World War I to report on it, because they weren't involved, so they weren't doing press censorship like it was done by the US back then. But still some fuzziness because we don't have the best records from back then. But the point is likely the authors were probably thinking of as a Spanish flu, or if I remember correctly, there was another flu pandemic in, I want to say, the early 70s. Now, or that might have been actually after this episode. But there was another flu pandemic between the Spanish flu and the COVID pandemic before the 90s, before the show went off the air, if I remember correctly. But they could have easily been thinking back to that, or just any time where there's a higher increase in the flu, like, cold and flu season. But this episode really does draw those parallels. The doctors are still, and nurses, well, Hawkeye and the nurses, because Hawkeye's the only doctor who is still healthy. But even by the end of the episode, he gets the flu, but he still carries on. Because he has to. There's no choice. Because really, the only two people who have once Henry, Trapper, and Frank go down with the flu, who have the best medical experience who could cut and do surgery, is Hawkeye and Margaret. Now, Margaret is a nurse, and her training does not involve doing that. And of course, there's a bunch of medical ethics rules, though, in a crisis situation. So, guess who's the nurse is doing the most actual surgery? It's Margaret, because it makes sense. She's the head nurse. She's the most experienced nurse. She's probably seen the most operations. So if anyone can do it, she can. Granted, she also takes over the administration of the camp, all the paperwork and stuff, which Hawkeye was perfectly willing. But Margaret, guess what she does? She keeps on going like Hawkeye is not letting her. And Hawkeye comes. I've never encountered such a sole winner before. But the thing is, she probably was legitimately expecting Hawkeye to give some pushback. Probably because Frank would give pushback, is my guess. Or even she would give pushback if somebody who she believes, if she was in a command and someone she believed wasn't supposed to be in command was trying to take command. So there could be a lot of stuff there, but I did think that was an interesting scene. And then, of course, there's another interesting scene right after Hawkeye admits that he's pretty sure he has a flu to Margaret. He says that he wants to get better so he can say all the mean, nasty stuff to her all over again. But in some ways, that is, especially early on, how the relationship is. You can definitely tell, though, respect is forming between them as clearly medical professionals in a way that wasn't there before. They always had some, but it feels stronger now. Granted, there's later episodes that really foment their friendship and establish what it is like. But there's one line where right after Hawkeye tasks Radar to scrub up so that way he can assist in just holding stuff and handing tools, medical instruments, he gives Margaret a compliment, and Margaret's response is, he's very sick. Like, she couldn't, like, the idea that Hawkeye was complimenting her for her basically her medical skills and all that was not something that she, at that time could see coming out of his mouth, given the fact that he's, always trying to flirt. And he's still trying to flirt when he's sick, given the fact that he's generally very dismissive of a lot of stuff, especially dismissive of Frank's medical skills. But the thing is, time will show again and again that Frank is not the most skilled surgeon out and the most skilled doctor. But everything shows that Margaret is a skilled nurse. So it does make sense. But the thing is, Hawkeye rarely shows it to Margaret because he does not respect her military authority. But this episode shows that he does respect her medical ethics and her medical skills and medical authority. Just, probably if not for the flu, he may not have admitted that, though that's getting into some speculation and stuff. But really, I do love this episode. I really love, while they don't tackle anything seriously, I love seeing the camp in that position, in a position where they still gotta do their job, patch up wounded soldiers, get them better, prevent them from having any, deaths. But at the same time are dealing with illnesses themselves that prevent them from being able to operate at their full capacity. That's something I really like seeing, the struggle. It's, yes, there's jokes in here, but the joke is not at the flu situation. Most of the jokes are the same jokes Hawkeye tells anyhow. Him dealing with being in the war. And there's some other jokes too, but really, this is just a good episode. I don't necessarily want to call it a fun episode. The jokes are not too big, but I really just like it. Probably one of my favorite episodes in terms of storyline, because there is a very basic storyline. The camp is most of the most experienced, the doctors are all coming down with the flu, and of course the nurses have not had the proper medical training and legally and ethically should not be conducting surgery. But in the time of crisis, where with only one actual surgeon, what do you do? And the thing is he runs himself ragged and lets himself get the flu, but he still continues operating despite being sick, which he probably shouldn't have done, but he was still standing, unlike all the other doctors. So that is where I'm going to end my review, but I would love to hear your thoughts on the episode Carry On Hawkeye in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching my video. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to give this video a like and share. Also, consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date on all my latest content. In the meantime, thank you for watching, and as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. May the force be with you, always.